everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this week's book tour interview. Today's guest is author Philipp Naughton, here to talk about his novel, The Book of Waiting, the first book in the Wightblade Chronicles, an epic fantasy series set in the richly imagined world of Terra Nostra. Magical studies, ancient mysteries, and a young protagonist discovering his true potential, this is a story that has captivated fantasy readers with its immersive world building and compelling characters. Hi, Laurence, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Michelle. Not a problem at all. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, you very kindly agreed to answer some questions. So, I'd like to start by asking you about the world of Terra Nostra. It feels incredibly rich and detailed with its own history, mythology, and even connections to another planet through the portal of the void. Where did the original idea for the world come from?
Well, the answer is I know and I don't know. My son was doing some historical wargaming with me, which is something I've done for a long time, a big hobby of mine, for absolutely several years. And then he was about 14. He decided that he wanted to start doing a fantasy army instead. And so I said, okay, yeah, D&D, Warhammer 48K. He said, no, I want one of my own. I want a bespoke one. So then we looked at lots of different figure manufacturers and lots of different ways of doing things and put a army that he wanted onto paper. And then I said, well, you're going to need an opposition because you can't sort of fantasy game just by yourself with nothing on the other side. So I guess I better get myself a fantasy army. So we looked at it again and put a different one together. And then I said, what is your army for? And he went, well, for gaming, Dad. I said, no, what is it for? Why is it on the table? I said, is it, princess, blood feud, famine, plague, all sorts of different reasons. He went, oh, right. So anyway, we spent the rest of the evening making up a few notes. And then I went on the bus to work next day, the good old X58 into Edinburgh. And I was just starting to copy up the notes that had all been scribbled into a neater form. And then it happened. And it took about 20 minutes. And I had pretty much the entire plot, the outline plot for the Wightblade Chronicles and some of the characters and some of the names literally in that time space. It was like having your own big bang going off in your head. Um, and up until that point, I'd never really thought about becoming an indie author or writing a full book. I'd written a little bit when I was younger, but had no idea that that was actually going to happen. And on that same bus journey, I wrote the last line of the last book, and I've never felt the need to change it in sort of 10 years now. Well, more than 10 years.
Absolutely love that story, Laurence. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
it with us. And at the heart of your story is Beniamino Carnevale. I don't know about the pronunciation there, but I'll give it a go.
Yeah,
Who's a
Beniamino
young
Carnevale. Yeah, everyone says Beniamino, so it's
perfect.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, bow to your expertise because I know you've lived in Italy. So he's a young man carrying a surname that inspires fear in others. What drew you to exploring a character whose identity shapes how the world sees him before he's had the chance to define himself?
Um, yeah, intriguingly enough, before we just get on to Beniamino, the original protagonist was going to be Laurentina, who's 3 cycles of octaves older than Beniamino. But within the
Hmm.
first few chapters, it came very clear that Beniamino was going to become the central character. He just strode in there and said, "Hello, here I am." Um, and the answer to the question's a little bit complex for a few reasons. I thought about unintended heroes because they happen quite a lot. There's just somebody and something happens, and they are there at the moment. That's always kind of intrigued me. And then I thought also of children with famous parents, and some of them do remarkably well, and others they just struggle with the weight of it all.
Mhm.
And sort of applied some of that to Beniamino. So having a really famous ancestor from a very long time ago provided an anchor point because it gave a lot of subplots to the stories. It gave a lot of opportunities to explore that and his background that he didn't even know he had at the time. Um,
Mhm.
and because of that, I was allowed more to do the contrast between the bullies and the evil side. who really, really detested the original Carnevale, Audacious Carnevale, because he'd
Mhm.
practically saved Aphelion. And the Horglands who lost never ever forgave it or forgot it. So when they find that Carnevale has gone to the Academium to study magic, it just does them their, so he's in for a lot of trouble just because of that alone. At the same time, he's, very kind of shy, very unsure, which we'll come on to. So it made a huge contrast between the ancestor and Beniamino in the present day.
Thank you. And several reviewers have praised the balance between the magical adventure and the very human themes of friendship, fear, bullying, and belonging. How important was it for you to ground the fantasy elements in real emotional experiences?
Intensely, totally, utterly important. I actually grew up moving around a lot. I was regarded as the kid who'd just come in from somewhere else, the odd kid, the
Hmm.
not left alone or in the playground or bullied because of it. So I
Hmm.
ended up relying on my imagination a lot. It allowed me to be a hero. It allowed me to be the good guy. It allowed me to take revenge on the people against me without anything actually happening to them. It sort of gave me a sense of control, and it kind of healed a lot of the emotions I had at the time. So there's a lot of myself in Beniamino, I think, growing up, because I did suffer from all that was written above. And
Hmm.
friendship became enormously important, but I also enormously distrusted it because you had the false friends who would pretend to make friends only to, lead you into something.
Hmm.
So I had to kind of separate that out. And so I believe in the book, those kind of emotions make the characters much more 3D, make them much more rounded and believable because they are going through similar things to what I would say pretty much everybody in the human race has gone through or goes through at some time. And
Hmm.
it also applies to the other races in the Wightblade Chronicles. That's what I wanted to bring through because, yep, there's fairies and there's elves and there's dwarves, but they have their own emotions, they have their own problems, they have their own likes and dislikes. So without trying to humanize them, you're still trying to give them characteristics that a reader can instantly relate to.
Hmm.
And because Elsa is she's an elfin waif, so she's half elf, half human, and she has a very famous mother, and she is completely, totally, and utterly vulnerable because of that, because of the way she is treated. She has the secret side and the flirty young elfin waif side.
Thank you for sharing that. So there's lots
Hmm.
there that
Hmm.
readers can relate to. And the Academy of Ventorium initially appears to be a place of learning and opportunity, but readers soon discover there's something much darker lurking beneath the surface.
Oh
Without naming
yes,
any names, is this symbolic of institutions that aren't always quite what they seem?
totally. Yes, most definitely is. And everyone will probably have their ideas of an institution of some kind that fits that category. And I always keep two phrases in the background. One was Lord Acton, that a lot of people know power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's so true. And then there is a derivation from Plato. He didn't actually write the words, and it was Freud who actually kind of put them into the context that most people know, which is the good are those who only dream what the wicked actually do. And I think what I'm trying to say there is that the human beings have opportunities within themselves to be how they are, but they can also be led down different paths.
Hmm.
And even if an institution starts off with the best of ethics, the best of intentions, the best of everything else, unless it's a completely virtual one, the institution itself is just a physical presence. There's
Hmm.
nothing there without the human beings that are running that institution. I might have to write a story about an AI institution that's just totally one AI dominating other AIs. That could be an interesting one. Anyway, um, So I think institutions, just the way they're set up, have a propensity to become soulless, to become dark, to become evolving into um, looking after themselves to the detriment of sometimes the very people that they're meant to be helping.
Don't you love that idea for the story you came up with there?
Mhm.
Might look forward to that in the future then.
I've got copyright if anybody's listening to this and thinks
Yeah,
of
if
it. Yeah.
anyone's listening, that's Loz's idea. So, as the first book in the Wightblade Chronicles, the Book of Waiting introduces readers to a much larger story. So, without giving away any spoilers, what are you most excited for readers to discover as the series unfolds?
Three different things, actually. One is a continued development and relationship between the characters and bringing in new characters. And believe me, there are some surprises in the book. You may expect one thing, I wouldn't guarantee it. Um, the next thing is as the books develop, the Academium is still part of the books, but it also moves out to new locations and settings, particularly when
Mhm.
the students start doing field trips with Theodore. So there's a whole new world of different places, and they are world built just the same way as the the book itself and the Academium is. Um, and then so following on from that, I just think there's a great deal of an amount of different things to kind of discover page by page, and I hope they're going to continue to delight the readers and continue to develop in the world of Terra Nostra and accept something called Icarus. But I will be telling too much if I explained all that.
Yeah, keep some secrets for the readers to discover themselves.
Lots and lots.
Well, thank you so much for answering my questions, Laurence, and sharing more about the Book of Waiting and the wider world of the Wightblade Chronicles. It's been really wonderful discussing the book with you today.
Mm-hmm. That's lovely.
And
Thank you very much.
a pleasure. You can get copies of the Book of Waiting and Philipp Naughton's other titles at his book signing at Chapters and Chai on Friday, June the 19th between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. or at our Midsummer Fantasy event, which you will be taking part in between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. on the following day, Saturday, June the 20th. If you're not sure where to find us, Chapters and Chai is located at 42 High Street on the Stockton-on-Tees. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.